part of a #1 movie in the world.
Suit up.
Captain America, where it feels strange to agree with the critics. This really is the same old Marvel rubbish, except somehow worse.
He's not Captain America. I'm not an idiot.
I mean, at least other Marvel movies tried to push some kind of moral message. It was evil, but it made you feel something. Whereas what you have with Captain America is all of that stripped out. You can tell this was meant to be a racist movie. That after the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, everything was set up for that. But instead what we get is heroes that stand for nothing. A milquetoast future built on a dream, using tools that are not only ineffectual, but self-destructive. There are constant hints and talks, characters that put forward positions where you know what the film was meant to be. But at some point when the movie was being made, it seems like that was stripped out and you were left with a big, fat, gaping void. It's like auditioning to be in the movie. And so what you're left with is a movie that's tonally all over the place and doesn't really make you feel anything because you have part of the movie which feels like a police procedural.
Your inner circle's been compromised. Let me fix it.
Another part trying to catch you up on all of the lore that's happened in TV series and movies nobody's seen. All of which are entirely irrelevant to this movie, so I don't even know why they bother. Hey up, Steve, yeah, do you remember when your mother did this to me 15 years ago? Then poured acid on me, and then after I recuperated, I got with her sister, but then her father wasn't happy and killed my dog, then got infected with gamma radiation, grew up and took over the universe. All the characters are standing there like, how did we get onto this topic? I asked, how are you? But clunky exposition aside, you also have a clunky story. That police procedural is to solve the crime of who's trying to kill the president. The problem is that happens after having a long-winded scene about how awful a guy he is because he went out and experimented on people throughout history.
People running tests.
That there was a black super soldier decades ago and nobody knew about it.
They put my ass in jail.
The entire nation and all of its leadership is absolutely awful and shouldn't be defended.
I was a wartime general. Now I'm a wartime president. The world needs a reset.
And the character that says it was falsely imprisoned by them, and as such hates all of them, and wants absolutely nothing to do with them, even to the point of telling Captain represents a lot of things but America isn't one of them, not to work for America. After telling us for 20 minutes how awful somebody is, it feels weird when we're supposed to suddenly care that people are trying to kill him, especially when the person that's trying to kill him is the one that kept telling us how awful he is. I was experimented on for 30 years, you can think, well, you know, maybe he's got a point. So an investigation happens to prove the innocence of a guy who's caught on camera actually trying to kill a bloke, while at the same time the movie's suggesting that even if he had been doing it to him, it would have been deserved in the first place.
I don't want a variable out there that I can't control. You ever ask yourself, who's playing who?
During this time, they meet a small child who can beat up grown men. At least that's how it's perceived. I mean, just look at the size of her. This is somebody who was trained by the Red Room to be an assassin. Why? Now, I've been told in real life she has some kind of medical problem which means that she didn't grow to a normal height. Fair enough. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. It does mean you can't be cast in this role, though. Because in the movie, it means that the Red Room, an assassination program, saw somebody who was sick and would grow to be about 4'5" and thought, you are the perfect assassin. We are an elite group that only trains the best. That's why we need you. Somebody with a severe medical condition.
Say I didn't warn you.
What if this is a trap?
If they think this is a good idea, I wouldn't put it past them to hire a paraplegic person to invade Atlantis. Can they even swim? No, but Atlantis is at the bottom of the ocean and they sink like a stone.
That's like being disabled at a football match, yeah? I mean, she's very close to the action, but hardly likely to score a goal.
Then you have Captain Abstract Concepts himself.
For me, Captain America represents a lot of different things, and I don't think the term, America should be one of those representations.
Who goes around and just kind of talks at people a lot, even defeats the Hulk by talking at him. Have you ever considered not being angry, Mr. Hulk? It's like, oh, I never thought of that. I've just spent the last 5 minutes, because that's all he's in the show, trying to brutally murder you, but then you suddenly went, hey up, calm down, mate, calm down. And like a Saturday night out in Liverpool, suddenly the fight was over.
You want me? Come and get me!
There are even numerous scenes of Harrison Ford smashing a marble table with his fist, or crushing solid metal pipes and the ship wall. Loads of people see him do it, and no one thinks, hang on, that's a bit weird. I think we need to get you to the doctor, mate. Something isn't right here. In a land where you've had a Skrull invasion that was replacing normal humans with foreign alien beings, you would definitely investigate if some guy started smashing marble tables and steel walls. Even if it's just to find out if the guy is actually him. This isn't the only stupid parts of the fight, such as how every time he lands in front of a group of enemies, he takes his helmet off.
Wait for it.
This reduces his head protection to nothing more than a flight helmet so he doesn't get bugs in his face. It's very similar to the Halo series where they reduced the helmet down to simply buggy protection device. He'd put the helmet on getting into the car and then take it off when he got out. He had to have his helmet off at all times, you see, because otherwise you might forget he's not Chris Evans.
You're not Steve Rogers. You're right, I'm not.
And you have to know this isn't Chris Evans because so that you can appreciate the sheer moral complexity, the difficulty of somebody that looks like Anthony Mackie wearing the stars and stripes for the flag of a nation he was born in.
You just don't understand. I'm a black man carrying the stars and stripes. What don't I understand?
The political equivalent of the house wine at a suburban Indian restaurant. Disconnected to the point of autism.
Apparently, this is really tough. It means a lot. It harks back to his ancestors, and I have no idea why.
Every time I pick this thing up, I know there are millions of people out there who are going to hate me for it. Even now, here, I feel it. The stares, the judgment.
Look, no one can grasp how difficult it is for me to earn millions of dollars in an acting role.
During a world this big, I couldn't put a price on that lesson. I come to set every day with a smile on my face because we're making Captain.
A lot of different things, and I don't think the term America should be one of those.
And being handed the shield, it just means a lot to me. It's personal.
I'm not descended from Europeans, you see. It's far more difficult for me. And rather than the film using this opportunity to prove that he's not a numpty, as was suggested in the trailer that he'd actually do.
You're not Steve Rogers. You're right, I'm not.
The I know is proved by his actions. It's like, look, I will prove you wrong. My deeds will speak for themselves. That doesn't happen. Instead of that very same scene in the movie, he just walks out angry, whining like a little girl. Although, as we've already proven, being a little girl in this movie wouldn't have stopped him doing the role. He still could have beaten up people 5 times his size. Instead, in typical Hollywood fashion, Anthony Mackie lets his words do the talking rather than his deeds, to the point where if he goes around with a face like a slapped arse, everybody else keeps feeling the need to affirm him. No, you're so much better than Captain America. Way better than that Chris Evans bloke. I mean, he may have been a symbol for people, but you're there. Someone that they can aspire to.
Hey, look, is this guy bothering you?
No, he's not bothering me. Do you know who this is?
It's almost word for word one of the comments that Anthony Mackie has made in the past that I put in a previous video. Like, look, all these other people, they don't need their representation. But people that look like me do. And I can represent everybody. I mean, they couldn't over there, but I could. I could. When even the movie is saying that morality is tied to Anthony Mackie's bank balance, it just goes to prove that Hollywood has a lot of work to do on their moral compass. Because they've been trying to say that Captain America is the best of us. He symbolizes the soul of America. And like, okay, wouldn't that be interesting to play with? There's a scene in the movie where American ships are meeting Japanese ships. The American pilots get mind controlled and start attacking the Japanese and almost causing a war between them. The Japanese launch fighters, and suddenly everyone's attacking each other.
It is not only important in moments like this.
Along comes Anthony Mackie and the new Falcon, and it's their job to stop a war. This would be a really interesting situation to see how he plays it. The longer the fight goes on, the more chance there is of escalation. The Japanese launching more fighters than the only 2 they launched, and the situation growing to a point where he can't handle it anymore. It's weird then that Captain America decides to drag this on forever. He starts flying between all the ships and just detonating every missile, sometimes with his face. Eventually, after a really long time, just flies over to the American pilots, jabs his wings into their ships, and ejects the pilot out of the air. The problem is that this is basically a neutral situation because nothing happened. Yes, it did give the president time to go, launch counter missiles! I don't know why they needed to be told that. You're getting shot at. It just seems like you were lucky that the president was on a military warship heading into a combat scenario at the time. But think about the complexity that you could have had. Captain America needed to make a choice to weigh up the risks. Do I just go after the pilots, ignore the missiles which have already been fired, so that I can shut them down as soon as possible and put a stop to this situation? Yes, those missiles may hit ships, but it's better that this is over quickly without having a chance to escalate. Or does he try and save everybody, stop all the missiles, which would almost inevitably result in those ships launching more fighters the longer the battle went on, until he couldn't handle it anymore, and missiles would still have gotten through. This would have been an interesting situation for at least to contemplate in the movie. At no point is this even considered. Instead, he tells the Americans to not launch more fighters in the hopes that the Japanese can see he's trying to de-escalate it. This would also make sense if the Japanese didn't fire missiles after he said this.
You like to play dress up and blindly execute the state's orders.
So whether he's willing to escalate it or not, the Japanese still do. In fact, the only reason this situation didn't get out of hand is because it seems that the Japanese just had 2 fighters to launch the entire time. This is the problem with the entire movie. There never really feels like there's any stakes. Captain America himself seems to write villain after villain after villain after villain. Every time he takes one down, there's just another one further behind it. It's bizarre.
Captain, you won't walk away alive.
He goes to fight Giancarlo and instead has to fight one of his henchmen. He's just an ordinary bloke as far as we can tell, but thought he could have fought Chris Evans with the super serum. This means he'd absolutely dumpster Sam Wilson, who's just a bloke down the pub, and in fact for a lot of the fight, he does. So it's a bit weird then that Sam Wilson is getting beaten in this fight until the guy makes some kind of snarky line about you should have brought more gadgets or something, immediately gets one shot. It seems that you can defeat Sam Wilson as long as you don't actually insult him first. The moment you make a joke comment, you are done. He will one-shot you. This guy wanted to fight actual Captain America with the super serum, and yet he couldn't even handle one punch from Sam Wilson. On its own, this wouldn't be too big of a problem. Until he fights Giancarlo later on, and the same thing happens.
Captain America caught without his wings.
Sam Wilson is getting his ass kicked. He's definitely lost the fight. But then he pours bleach onto a car battery. How did he find bleach in a junkyard? We'll never know. But either way, it makes smoke, and Giancarlo says some kind of snide one-liner at him after winning for the entire fight. And Sam Wilson comes along, jumps at him, gives him one kick, Giancarlo's done. So two of the bad guys get defeated in exactly the same way, in the same cliche, after a comment about, oh, I bet you could do this all day. Oh, you're nothing without your gadgets. Instantly get defeated. Most anticlimactic way to end a fight possible, and they do it twice. This kind of power balancing for Sam Wilson is the entire movie. Quite often he'll just get defeated by some random bloke, just a minion that turns up with 6 other guys. There's even a scene where Mackie has his shield, and there's just an ordinary random guy that you would find 200 of in a corridor scene who's overpowering him with strength. And it even makes sense. It's even reasonable because this is just a bloke. He's not Captain America. He doesn't have the super serum. Of course he's getting defeated by random numpties. He is a random numpty.
No super serum, no blonde hair or blue eyes.
Made that decision to become unabashedly Captain America.
The only power I have is that I believe we can do better.
But at the same time, that's balanced out by him yeeting the shield 100 meters away, bouncing it off 5 different missiles, and then having it bounce back to him. You can't have your cake and eat it too, but the movie does. Because rather than setting a consistent power level and then using that as the narrative design to put him through challenges, instead, they have cool ideas that they want to do, and then just give him the power to do it for those 5 seconds. And remove it from him later. This is the same for everything revolving his character. He's just a normal bloke. He doesn't have the super serum, so he can't heal quickly. This is a problem when he takes an axe to the stomach. Stomach wounds, universally renowned for being some of the worst that you can have. There really is no nice place to have a stomach wound. So when an axe gets smashed into his stomach and he's absolutely fine, they probably realized they had to explain that one. Along comes a meeting with Giancarlo, where he goes, you've recovered really well. I assume that was a Kevlar weave, was it? Yes, it was actually. Perk of the job. What does a Kevlar weave have to do with anything? Sure, it's armor, so that would stop the axe to the stomach, correct? Except that Kevlar weave didn't stop anything. We saw the axe go into his stomach. You can't just say things that don't make sense and use it as an explanation. But they thought because they pointed it out, it solved the problem. Doesn't. This is why Anthony Mackie repeating throughout the entire movie, I should have taken the serum, doesn't solve the problem of him not taking the serum. If you're going to be a superhero and someone offers you take the pissing superpowers.
No super serum, no blonde hair or blue eyes.
I don't want to watch a movie or see a character who is too thick to realize that super strength might be useful if he's a good person trying to save the world. He's too egotistical to realize that he's deficient for the job that he wants to do. And it doesn't help that everyone else keeps telling him, no, you don't need them, you're just amazing. Having empathy won't protect you from a Hulk hitting you in the face.
You want me? Come and get me!
There's even a scene where they set up, he can avoid the hits, where he fights Carl Lumley as Super Soldier. And this works for him to show that he can dodge hits, except he also gets damaged in that fight and he can't recover. That one training session should have lighted in his tiny little mind, I need the super serum, I'm an idiot. Unfortunately, he's too mentally deficient to ever come to this reasonable conclusion, and just repeating how much he should have taken it throughout the movie doesn't help this when the movie doesn't end with him taking the pissing super serum. You can't have a guy realize he's an idiot for 2 hours and then not do anything to solve it. That makes him more of an idiot if you double down. So between no kind of moral message, a parade of villains that were all crap, weak and pathetic, because so is he. Power levels all over the place, from where just normal minions are a problem to I can fight the Hulk. No kind of moral conundrum. Police procedurals which belong in a TV series but not an action movie. Scenes that go nowhere, are badly edited together, and characters just seem to jump out of literal thin air. There's a scene where Anthony Mackie is driving along, and then Giancarlo just appears and starts shooting him. Yes, I know he was hired to kill him, but where did he come from? Where did he go? It seems like a movie devoid of all emotion, where it's just random scenes put back to back, and then occasionally a fight happens. And you're left with the lingering feeling that the story actually doesn't make sense if you think about it. Yet you have no desire to think about it at all. It's not interesting to think about in the least, so your brain tries to stop you doing so, just as a self-defense mechanism. There's lots of parts of it that doesn't make sense, like we're infecting the Hulk by giving him gamma radiation pills. So we see these pills, he just carries them around with him all the time. They've been increasing the dosage of the gamma radiation, to the point where it will turn him into a Hulk. He's carrying the pills around with him all the time. This guy has been in the White House with gamma radiation. He's been in the government with gamma radiation. These people would be getting sick. Their hair would fall out. They'd be melting in the Senate. Nothing. Nothing at all. I mean, for a villain who's willing to kill and destroy somebody's entire legacy to get revenge on the American government, I'm so glad that he seems to put such care into stopping innocent bystanders getting hurt from the lethal gamma radiation. He clearly doesn't want innocents to be killed. Except all the ones that he got killed in the movie. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the audience likes it because Captain Brave New World can claim the biggest opening weekend of this year. Yes, this is the biggest weekend of 6 weekends. I know, that was a sought-after crown, difficult to achieve, but it's better than the 5 movies that have been released this year. Congratulations, my dear chap. One of the articles even compared it to The Marvels, where he said The Marvels was a rare Marvel money loser in theaters. I'm just not sure how rare nearly every movie is, but it's not the word I'd use. No, really, the movies were right. This is just sloppy spectacle. There were quirky overhead shots of Cap throwing his mighty shield, but really, the majority of his strength came from Falcon abilities. It was his ability to fly, his jetpacks, his invincible wings that could harness the power of energy that was used against them.
The only power I have is that I believe we can do better.
His shield, well, I mean, he occasionally used it. He could kick it in somebody's face, I guess, but it's nothing he couldn't have done with a brick that he picked off up the floor. The times where he got into a fight without his suit on and he's running away holding the shield, we're just quite lucky that they shot the shield rather than all of his body and his legs that weren't covered by it. It was very rare to feel like this Captain America got through a situation via his skill. The fights themselves didn't even feel like this was an incredibly talented man who just outclassed everybody else, where the challenge came from the almost impossible odds in front of him. With this Captain America, it felt like the challenge came from him just being a bloke, and he survived not through talent, but by the sheer overpowered nature of the tech he'd been given by far more intelligent, talented people. The fact that he was literally too thick, too low IQ to take a super serum as a hero. And I think humans as a whole are just repelled by that kind of thing. They're willing to help people who are suffering through problems if it's not their fault. But if you're going through a movie being defeated by random minions because you were too thick to take a super serum, something that would have enabled you to save the world better, to protect people better, something that, yes, would have given you power, but the power to save other people if used well, you can't respect that. It's almost like they thought that power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely is true. Like, they didn't want to give him power because nobody should have that kind of power. Power should be distributed among the people. No, good people should have the power because they can use it. The problem is when bad people have power and use it. Power is just a tool, but it's not bad in itself. It matters the person wielding it. And if we're supposed to think that Anthony Mackie is a great Captain America, if his empathy is supposed to be a superpower, ridiculous as a statement as that is, because I'm not even sure it's beneficial for a hero to have, but if he is supposed to be the embodiment of good, then why wouldn't you want that to be supercharged with the serum? And until Marvel can answer that question, until they can understand the difference between good and evil, until they can get back to writing moral conundrums of, yes, you want to do the right thing, but you're also just one man. So what do you do when you meet a situation where you're just not enough? If you can't save everybody, how do you choose who not to save? What are you willing to sacrifice in order to prevent something worse? And I'm not sure Marvel can even make superhero movies, because they don't seem to know what a hero is. I've reached a point where I'm not even sure if superhero fatigue is actually fatigue of the superheroes, or fatigue from the people that don't know what heroes are. They're now saying that the movie isn't bad because of the reshoots, and in fact, they only did additional photography once, which is the same as they do on all movies. And the thing is, I'm not sure that's a flex, because now you're saying that this movie is like this deliberately. It was intentional that you made a film devoid of any kind of emotional resonance at all. That you filmed a brick wall and put that on the cinema as if you thought that was enough. At least reshoots would have been an excuse for you to hang your hat on. But the movie is like this because you wanted it this way? You intended it to be like this from the start. For the scenes to feel unrelated from the start. For people to just pop in out of nowhere from the start. That's not a good defense. I'm not even sure it's true. When you've got actors saying, well, we just joined the movie when it was already being made. Because this is one of the lowest rated MCU films. Massively more lower rated than the rest of Captain America. And continues the trend of declining scores over time since Endgame. And hey, I'm glad that you want to take credit for that. That you want to say it's all your fault and was intended to be that way from the start. That is a brave thing to do. I'm just not sure it's going to be the best for your career. When it comes to the future of other superhero movies and the MCU, maybe that's for the best. Because this movie isn't offensively bad, but it doesn't do anything. It's not entertaining at all. And so the movie never even gets off the starting blocks. And I don't think Marvel can until they get back to what a hero is. A man sacrificing himself to save the day against evil. It's so simple. We've been doing this since the start of time. Telling stories is built into our DNA. It's our instinct. But to get back there, you'd have to get rid of everyone who's pro-deconstruction, pro-modernity, and return to people who appreciate where we came from, because that is the motivation of all good stories. That there's something good in this world worth fighting for, and it's the same things which humans have been fighting for thousands of years. And that doesn't include whatever TikTok trend appeared over the last few years. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe. More videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.